In most areas of the Roman Empire, crucified bodies did become pickings for vultures and dogs, that much is certain. But not always, and not everywhere. In Judea and especially around Jerusalem there was a law that, from the perspective of the Jewish people, came from a higher source than Caesar. In this law, God commanded the Israelites,
If someone guilty of a capital offense is put to death, and their bodies exposed on a pole, you must not leave the body hanging on the pole overnight. Be sure to bury it that same day, because anyone who is hung on a pole is under God's curse. You must not desecrate the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance.
The temple scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran testifies to how seriously Jews took this command even during the times of exile and occupation. You shall not allow bodies to remain on a tree overnight, most assuredly, you shall bury them, even on the very day of their death. The Jewish Book of Tobit, an entertaining little text, penned in the time period that stands between the Old and New Testaments, identifies the burial of abandoned corpses as an act of supreme piety. Near the end of the 1st century AD, the Jewish historian Josephus contrasted the Jewish perspective on crucified bodies to typical Roman practices. According to Josephus, Jews are conscientious about their burial practices so much, so that even criminals sentenced to crucifixion are removed and buried before the sun sets. In another writing, Josephus stated, Jews must furnish fire, water, and food to anyone who asks, giving directions to the right road, never leaving a corpse unburied. Later rabbis echoed this concern for the deceased. According to the rabbis, although the bodies of criminals might not immediately be placed with the bodies of their ancestors, even criminals had to be buried. After their flesh decomposed, the bones of criminals were placed in a family tomb. Especially approaching a festival as important as Passover, the Jewish people and particularly the religious leaders would have wanted the body of Jesus removed from the cross. And, in the case of a figure as popular and potentially problematic as Jesus, it is likely that someone would have been willing to bury him even if that act rendered the person ceremonially unclean. In this context, the request of Joseph of Arimathea makes complete sense.
Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent member of the council who was himself waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate was surprised to hear that he was already dead. Summoning the centurion, he asked him if Jesus had already died. When he learned from the centurion that it was so, he gave the body to Joseph.
To be sure, Joseph wanted to honor the body of Jesus. But, from the perspective of Pontius Pilate and fellow members of the ruling council, here's how his motive would have appeared. As a member of the ruling council, Joseph of Arimathea wanted the corpse removed before sundown, to avoid any defilement in the land of Israel. A burial overseen by the Jewish ruling council also fits with Papyrus Cairo 10, 759. A fragmentary account of the life of Jesus that, though written several decades after the apostolic eyewitnesses, retains remnants of an ancient retelling of the resurrection narrative, independent of the New Testament Gospels. Someone would have wanted to bury the body of Jesus, that much seems certain. Both the Roman authorities and the ruling council would have wanted to stifle any loyalty to this would-be Messiah as soon as possible. Furthermore, from a Jewish perspective, not to bury his body would have violated the law of God.
People will be continually employed in cleansing the land. They will spread out across the land, and along with others they will bury any bodies that are lying on the ground. After the 7 months they will carry out a more detailed search. As they go through the land, anyone who sees a human bone will leave a marker beside it until the grave diggers bury it in the valley of Haman Gog, near a town called Hamanah, and so they will cleanse the land.
So, the question is not whether anyone would have requested the body of Jesus. Someone would have.